Hello, it's nice to see you again. Um, Thank you for coming along today. I really do appreciate a lot of you for always coming along, and for those of you that has been, helping to share this channel by commenting, by liking, subscribing. I so much do appreciate you. Thank you so much for all of your help. I really do appreciate. My intent is to build this community of practice, active and responsive community of practice for Scrum and Agile. And you are helping me to do that. So thank you so much. If this is the first time you are joining me, please go ahead and click that subscribe button down there. And if you're listening to me, please click that subscribe button down there and the notification bell so that anytime I release new content, you'll be the first person to receive it. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for always trusting and coming to me. And as always, I give you all the flowers. All right. I'm going to be talking about something very important today because a lot of people, I have watched Scrum Masters, I have watched product owners, I have watched project managers struggle, especially from the business part of this, right? Sometimes you build a product and when you ship the increment, you realize that the customer doesn't like it. Even when the customer participates in the sprint review section, and even though when you deploy or when you release, what are you going to do about it? I see product owners struggling to write a very well refined user story. I see Scrum Master, getting all the blame when the team members don't really meet up with the customer expectation. I see Scrum Masters thinking on how to collaborate and support the product owner. So now I got an idea, a technique on how you can really, really continue to deliver what the customer expectations are and how you can always meet with the business need. That is what is called the hypothesis driven development, HDD. So I know you might be wondering what is hypothesis driven development. Perhaps you could have heard it or you are not sure what that is. Relax, right? It's just a technique on how you can really continue to validate or disprove the market value or expectation of the users of the products you are, embarking on. Okay. So what I'm going to do with you, what I'm going to share with you here is what HDD is, how it applies, and the technique you could use or the step-by-step process you could take in order to get the value-driven nature of HDD. Okay. So as always, at any point in time, please, you can always, rewind this video to get more information on what I have said. Please and please, I would love to hear your question at the end. Your comments is so important. Feedback is so important for me so that I will always continue to provide valuable information for you and for the community. All right. As always, I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. All right. So the HDD is basically an approach to validate users' expectation and for you to prioritize the features you're going to release or you're going to deliver, right? So with that said, you might be wondering what HDD is, specifically what it is. It is just an experimental way, an approach to identify and validate or disprove, a hypothesis. Hypothesis is basically a proposition based on limited evidence. You remember those days when you were in secondary school, high school, and you're, most of the times in the science department, or if you're one of those people that, were science students in college or in high school, I mean, the teacher will be able to give you an assignment or a project to embark, go and do research, and then come up with a solution. And then you go and do your research, you make a proposition, and then you provide that with a support evidence, and then you can be able to arrive at an outcome. So that is basically what hypothesis-driven development is. Hypothesis is when you make a proposition, right, based on limited evidence of what you have. So I'm using the example of when you were in high school. I mean, all of us, we all went through high school and college, right? I mean, there were those times when you were asked to go and, embark on a research, come and then provide that research outcome of your research in the classroom, whether you did it as a group, in a group setting, or you did that in a single format, independent student. So, however, it is just a way of failing fast, right? You just want to fail and discover what are the ways that this wouldn't work in order to arrive at the ways it would work, right? So it is just like a way of doing the TDD, which is test-driven development. If you remember the technique about the test-driven development, where you have to start from the testing part of the code to know what fails so that you can build what will work. That is basically what hypothesis-driven development is, but from the user story perspective, right? So it is just a way iteratively of solving an unknown unknowns. You're not sure of what you're not sure of, but you want to figure out what you're not sure of, if that makes sense, right? Through this HDD, there are a lot of things you kind of solve these either uncertainties. We all understand that in software development is so complex. There are a lot of complexities there. So those unforeseen circumstances and those complexities, this HDD gives us the opportunity to resolve and arrive at and validate those uncertainties. Okay, so that is what HDD is in a nutshell. Now we understand basically the framework, the traditional structure of a user story as XYZ. I want to so that this is basically what all of us most of the times we are used to. But HDD is just an overturn. It's just like turning it upside down, if I may put it that way. So it starts by, so you start by giving us the benefits. In order to get this, as a this, I want to this. So each of these formats has their benefits or has its center focus. For example, we understand the traditional way of writing user stories as XYZ, I want XYZ so that XYZ. I mean, we use that in order to capture requirements, right? In capturing that requirements, we highlight and identify the persona, the person that wants that. And then we kind of state the obvious, which is the benefit or the value that we want to achieve. But in the HDD, which is hypothesis-driven development, right, we use it to improve the original user story framework. By improving it, it engages the team members, both the marketing department, both the IT department, to collaborate and communicate, right? Remember what Scrum, the 12 principles, talks about the business and the IT. They have to find a way to communicate. So the HDD gives an opportunity to embark on a research first, make a proposition, right, and then come to validate or disprove it. And it's not just the IT researching is not just for IT, right? The business department is also engaging in the research. Now, they come together to provide those evidence, to provide those statements and test it before they can be able to say ascertain and validate, right? So that's what HDD presents, the value-driven nature or the benefit, if I may put it that way. Now, HDD user stories has a structure like the previous one I just showed you, the previous slide I just showed you, right? I mean, as a Scrum Master myself, I have worked with a Scrum Master, worked with a product owner who understands what's the HDD, how to use it. Now, from research, from my experiment and from research, now, the format to structure the HDD user story starts with, we believe that this capability or this functionality would result in when we see a measurable, right? So you are basically starting with, we believe, in other words, you're making a statement, a proposition. And what is that provision? It centers on a feature. And that feature will be able to revolve around an outcome. And that outcome is supported by an evidence. So there is this idea of evidence. Remember the story or remember the analogy I made about when you were in high school, right? So there must be an evidence or there must be an outcome, a realistic outcome to support the proposition. Now, what is the sample? The sample is we believe that increasing the size of hotel images on the booking page, this is what we are hoping to achieve, right? We will result in improved customer engagement and conversion. We will have confidence to proceed when we see a 5% increase in customers who review hotel images, who then proceed to book in 48 hours. So in other words, when people do this, that is an evidence to say that this is going to work. That is what is basically telling us. Now, if you're working in a very complex environment, you want to make sure that you are providing something that meets the customer's expectation. And how would you be able to meet the customer's expectation? By first of all, figuring out. And how would you figure out? By engaging in research, right? There has to be some kind of brainstorming. There has to be some kind of that collaboration, right? And the traditional way of, writing the user story doesn't give us that collaboration, doesn't give us that idea of, first of all, figuring out. We just interpret what we feel the customer wants. But HDD gives us the opportunity to really investigate, is this truly, really what the customer or what the user would expect to get, or the value? So I so much really love HDD and the way it is structured and ironed out. Now, you might be wondering, how do you really go about this HDD? Okay, there are about 6 steps to take in order to achieve the result or driven nature of this HDD. The first is to list down your questions and assumptions. So you start with, figuring out using sticky notes with your team members, or if you want to do that on individual, but most of the time the sweetness of this HDD comes when you do it in a group setting, okay? So try to experiment and try to do it in a group setting. So you have to list down your questions and assumptions. Would this work in this? Would this happen if this? These are assumptions, these are questions. You just want to keep throwing it out there. It is one of the ways to do the market research, okay? Now, after you have gotten all of those, questions and assumptions that, in a traditional sense, they look and appear like requirements, then you guys have to vote for it. What you should do in the immediate, what you should not do. You just have to prioritize. By voting, you're just prioritizing, basically. Excuse me. Now, from that voting, you can now develop a hypothesis. I already mentioned what a hypothesis is. It's just like, making the proposition, supported by limited evidence, right? So when you develop your hypothesis from the questions that you already got, in other words, the ones I've already voted and prioritized, then you can now test it. Remember when I was initially making a statement that hypothesis-driven development is somehow similar to test-driven development? Did you remember that? Now, you test. Most of the times when team members, take the approach of test-driven development, watch the code quality. It always comes out very well refined. There are less bugs, there are less code breaks, there are less kind of risk embedded in it when you engage in test-driven, because you have to test to know what works, what wouldn't work, okay? So in this way, you have to test, right, with an experiment. And how would you test? Through surveys, through interviews, through usability testing, to know whether what you're really thinking or what you are hoping to build is what actually the end users are thinking, right? And then when you are sure, when you have ascertained these steps, the next thing is to learn what didn't work and then build. And then you repeat the cycle. It's like a cyclic form. And then when you are sure of what is working, then you can now develop and maintain. Sounds simple enough? Okay, so I want you to go back and watch my explanation. All right, listen to it over and over again. Do your research, right? Let me know what you have tried, what you think will be the benefit, or what are your, I would say, what are your fears? Most of the times, a lot of us, we are so much dogmatic on this I want to, so that try experiment with this hypothesis-driven development. It works. It has worked for my team, and it's continuing to work for my team. I want you to try. I want you to benefit from all that I enjoy with my team members. Again, so that is all I got for you today. Right? Sounds simple enough, but I would love to hear your feedback. I would love to hear your thoughts. Let me know how this has worked for you in the past. Let me know what and how we can, embellish and polish this, or how we can even implement it in different environments. I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to also share in your own knowledge. Thank you always for coming along, and thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking this. Thank you for helping me to share this. All right. Tell your friends, your colleague, your team, your company about what we do here. Let us continue to build this active and responsive community of practice so that truly we will be agile evangelists. All right. I hope to see you again next time. In the meantime, I hope you stay well. Bye for now.